Oceana Snead. Now, this true crime case reminds me very much of a case I did maybe 3 years ago now called the Papin Sisters. It is in my true crime playlist if you are interested. But the reason they remind me so much of each other is because both of these cases go way back in history. More specifically, the woman that we're going to be talking about was born in 1885. So we are going way back in time, way back in history. And so I thought this would be a very interesting case to cover. As always, my true crime videos, they contain sensitive topics, and some of them can be graphic. This one isn't too graphic, but it still contains sensitive topics, and just overall very creepy topics. So my true crime videos are never intended for anyone under the age of 17. This is for adults who actually like the combination of true crime and ASMR. Understandable that not everybody does, but only if you are into that kind of thing. So if this is not the video for you, please just click away now. But we will get started this case because it is so far back in history. The facts are, some are missing, or some of this may be wrong a little bit, but the overall story I do have written down to tell you. And there are a good amount of names in this case, and it was very hard for me when I was taking my notes to kind of keep track of everybody, so bear with me. I'm gonna try to only tell you the information that you need to know, but I will be referring to my notes quite a bit for this video. Okay, so again, we are talking about the story of the Snead sisters. They did not all have the last name Snead, but they were all family, and Snead was part of their family. So I think they just picked the Snead sisters just to have a better name when talking about this case. So there were the Snead sisters, and then their family member Oceana Snead, and she went by the nickname Oshie or Ozzy, but I'm gonna say Oshie. So we're gonna call her by that name for the purposes of this video. Okay, so this case takes place in the early 1900s, but let's go to 1885, which was when Oshie was born. She was born in September of 1885. It is thought that she was born in New York. It said probably New York. Her mother was named Caroline Bell Wardlaw. Caroline is very involved in this case. She had a career in education, and she was at one point removed or fired from her position for, quote, unstable behavior. Oshie's father was named Robert Maxwell Martin, and the only thing that I could really find about him, a fact about him, was that he fought in the American Civil War. But Caroline is the one we are focusing on here. Okay, so that is Oshie's mother. Now, Caroline had 3 sisters, which were all Oshie's aunts. So first up, we have Mary. Her full name was Mary Elizabeth Long Wardlaw. Mary was married to a man named Fletcher Snead, and together they had a son, also named Fletcher, and he actually became, or would become, Oshie's husband slash first cousin. Okay, so that's Mary and her little family. Then there is Virginia. She was never married, but Mary and Virginia also had careers in education, and they were very heavily involved in Oshie's death. The third sister was named Bessie Gertrude Wardlaw. And she is not involved in this case at all, was not involved in the murder. But she was the third sister. There were also two brothers, so Ogie's uncles. There was John and Albert. So, decently sized family. Okay, so let's go back to Caroline, Ogie's mother, and her two sisters that were involved in the murder. They were described as women with they were very odd and different. They were known for dressing in just all black, and they just came across as very secretive. You know, everything was done very hush-hush. And it was noted that several strange deaths followed the women in their later lives. So they were a little suspicious, okay? So now let's focus on Ogie's marriage to Fletcher, her cousin. So, they got married when she was around 21 years old in 1906 in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, there were like two weddings, kind of. So, the first time they got married, it was done kind of in secret because not all of the family members approved of their union. Eventually, the family members were, quote, won over, and so they had a second ceremony. I'm sorry, I keep touching my hair. So, yes, they won their family over, and a second ceremony was held on January 13th, 1908 in Jersey City, New Jersey. Very shortly after their second ceremony, they had their first child, and they ended up actually having two children. They had Mary and David. Both of her children were known to have health complications. So their firstborn, unfortunately, passed away. And while they lost the first child, very quickly she was pregnant again. And during the second pregnancy, Fletcher ended up moving to Canada, her husband, and he was under an assumed name, and he never contacted his wife again, but left her in the care of her aunts. He just got up and just left. And at some point, after he left, her mother, Ogie's mother, ended up lying to her and said that Fletcher was dead, while he was in fact very much alive and was in contact with the family. So not really sure what the reasoning is there, but he was very much alive. Okay, so let's fast forward now to 1909, the scene of the crime. On November 29th, 1909, police show up at Ogie's home in New Jersey, and at the time she lived with her aunt Virginia. When the police arrived, they found Ogie. She was 24 at the time, and she was lying dead, naked in her bathtub. Her clothes were all piled on the floor nearby, and there was a note. Don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, so I don't want to say the word, but you could probably guess what kind of note I'm talking about that you would find in a situation like that. That was apparently left behind by her, and that she apparently wrote her sick children and her missing husband was just too much for her to bear, and it caused a, quote, pain and suffering greater than she could bear, like I said. Now, at first, her case seemed very cut and dry, simple. Here's the note, here's her, this is what happened, right? But pretty soon, investigators started thinking about it, and they had doubts that it was not so cut and dry. Now, when they were doing their investigation, looking around the house, as you know they have to, they found some weird things happening. So they said when they were walking around, it had an air of like near vacancy, like it didn't really look lived in. It lacked working heat and had almost no furniture in the home. Aunt Virginia had been very slow to report the incident to police, so Oshie had been dead for about 24 hours before her aunts called the police to alert them. And she justified waiting 24 hours because she said, Oshie went in the bathroom and demanded privacy, so we left her alone and we didn't know. Which doesn't really make sense. Do you think someone's in the bathroom for 24 hours? No. But that was the story they went with, right? So then police also spoke to Oshie's doctor. She also had health complications. And so they went and spoke to her doctor, and they were discussing the fact that when she died, she was less than 80 pounds. She suffered from malnourishment and chronic illnesses that came from the malnutrition. Oshie's mother and Aunt Mary also were at the house when this investigation was taking place, and they were behaving very, very strange. The three women walked around in all black with veils covering their faces, like long veils that touched the floor. And the police said that it was like, it felt very showy, like it wasn't genuine grief. It was like they were putting on a show. And when they asked the aunts and her mother, like, why she was so sick, they just gave like bizarre reasons that didn't really make sense of why they didn't help her get better. So this is what finally exposed the truth. So the woman had actually made a collection of $32,000 in a life insurance policy. They took life insurance money out on her. $32,000 at the time. It's a lot more than $32,000 now. And so they eventually put two and two together, and she may have been sick and she may have suffered from depression, but she did not do this to herself, right? So here's what came out afterwards. This is gonna help everything make a little more sense. So Oshie had never been liked by her mother from the time she was born, nor has she been liked by her aunts. And basically, from the time she was born, they tried to starve her to death. Her doctor would actually send her home after appointments with instructions. Give this to your mom and your aunt. This is how they can care for you. And when he would make house visits to check up on her, it was very clear that those instructions were not being followed. Her doctor would even try to smuggle her food sometimes. Her Aunt Virginia had instructed the doctor to tell Oshie that she was dying and that she needed to write a will right away. She was trying to convince the doctor to tell her that. But instead of doing that, this doctor was cool. Instead of doing that, the doctor actually sent a nurse in to care for her in the home. And she only made it one day before the sisters just pushed her out of there, bullied her out of there. The sisters tried to bribe the doctor with money, saying that they would give him a cut of, her will or whatever. He said no. And it was discovered that after Oshie gave birth, I'm not sure, I think it was the second child, if I had to guess, but I'm not 100% sure. But the sisters were giving her regular but unnecessary doses of morphine to help with the postpartum pain, but they were really just drugging her. And on November 29th, 24 hours after Oshie really died, they called the police to report a quote accident. And now this is what the note laying beside the tub that was supposedly written by Oshie, this is what it said. Last year, my little daughter died. Other near and dear kindred too have gone to heaven. I long to go there too. I have been ill and weak a very long time now. Death will be a blessed relief to me in my sufferings. When you read this, I will have committed. My sorrow and pain in this world are greater than I can endure. Forgive me for skipping certain words. I just don't want YouTube to take down my video, but you guys can figure it out. So, 𝓲𝓬𝓬𝓲𝓪 was buried on December 7th, 1909 at the Mount Hope Cemetery beside her father, beside her 7-year-old brother, and her two-day-old infant daughter, Mary. After she died, her son was sent to an orphanage and unfortunately died 9 months later, and he was buried with her and the rest of their family as well. Now, just a few more tidbits of like the investigation. So 𝓲𝓬𝓬's death was identified as a drowning, and starvation was also a contributing cause of her death. Her mother and aunts were definitely seen as suspicious, like we talked about. The evidence against the sisters consisted of several life insurance policies that they took out on 𝓲𝓬𝓬 and several notes. Sorry, I lost my place. Notes that were found in the possession of 𝓲𝓬𝓬's mother that were written in the same handwriting as 𝓲𝓬𝓬's letter was, and with a similar style of, like speaking and grammar. And then the last contributing factor was the way that they treated her while she was, sick and weak and close to death. So all 3 women were arrested and charged with murder. Virginia ended up starving herself in prison in 1910. Caroline pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was taken to jail. She was then transferred to a mental institution where she died in 1913. Mary was released since there at the time was no charge for accomplice to manslaughter, and went to live with her son in Colorado, and she passed away in 1937. So it's such a tragic story, like pretty much everyone just ended in an early death, and freaking Frederick was nowhere to be found. But I did read, and I think I said it in this video, that he did have contact with his aunts and his family, so he had to have found out what happened. I don't know what happened or what became of him, but very sad story. So that is a little bit of a historical true crime for you. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to this story. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and I will see you in my next video.